Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a fascinating plunge into meme coins, specifically Dogwifhat, WIF.
Yes, the one on Solana, the Shiba Inu with the pig gap.
That's the one. Quite stylish. So we've gathered a whole bunch of sources to really, get under the hood, see what's driving it, what might be next.
Exactly. We've got price predictions from Coin Codex, Bankless Times, sentiment analysis from Tintuk Bitcoin over on Binance Square.
Okay.
Plus some broader meme coin trends, Cointelegraph's take on WIF itself, even a Reddit chat about its lack of a white paper.
Chuckle slightly. Right. Heard about that.
Yeah. And technical analysis from Investec, and even a comparison piece from Disrupt Africa looking at a newer coin, JetBolt.
So the goal here for you is really to cut through that meme hype, that noise, and see what all this data actually suggests about Dogwifhat's path. The potential, sure, but also, maybe more importantly, the risks. Because, meme coins, right?
Absolutely. Risks are definitely part of the package.
Okay, so let's unpack it. Where are things sitting right now? Mid-May 2025.
Well, the price seems pretty consistent across the board, hovering around $1.12, maybe $1.13.
Okay.
But what's really making waves is the recent surge. I mean, huge jumps. Tintuk Bitcoin measured 127% in just the last 7 days.
Wow, 127%.
Yeah, and Disrupt Africa had similar figures, over 93%, even mentioning a 100% surge in a week. That kind of speed, it's noticeable.
Yeah, that's not just a little bump. That definitely gets your attention. And it's translating into serious market presence.
Oh, definitely. Disrupt Africa puts the market cap at roughly $1.11 billion.
Billion, okay.
Yeah, and the trading volume, it's soaring. Bankless Times reported over $2 billion traded in 24 hours at one point.
$2 billion, just on weight.
Tintuk Bitcoin saw $174 million just on Binance in a day. Disrupt Africa mentioned over $850 million overall. So intense activity, lots of interest.
That certainly paints a picture of heavy trading. And it's not moving totally on its own, is it? CoinCodex found some connections.
Right, they pointed out positive correlations with coins like Theochain, Monero, Kaspa, Floki Inu, Injective.
Meaning their prices tend to move somewhat together.
Yeah, so just a similar pattern, potentially. And then on the flip side, negative correlations with things like DEXI, PAX Gold, Bitcoin Cash, Universal Leo, and XDC Network. So WF might move opposite to those.
Interesting. Okay, so we see the surge, the volume. What's actually pushing the price up like this? What's the engine?
Well, several things seem to be feeding into it. A big one, according to Bankless Times, is just the general excitement around Solana meme coins overall.
So like a category trend.
Exactly. A rising tide lifting those particular boats. Dogwifhat seems to be riding that wave.
Makes sense. What else?
The high trading volume we just talked about, plus increased open interest in derivatives. Both Bankless Times and Tintuk Bitcoin highlighted this.
Open interest, that's the number of active futures or options contracts.
Precisely. Tintuk Bitcoin said it hit a 3-month high of $355 million. Bankless Times had an even bigger number, over $449 million. When you see open interest rise along with the price, it often suggests new money flowing in, fueling things.
Right, indicating strong conviction from traders, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. And adding to that, positive funding rates. Both sources mention this too. It suggests more people are betting on the price going up, holding long positions.
Okay.
Tintuk Bitcoin even gave specifics like 54.5 million WIF bought versus 47 million sold in one 24-hour snapshot. Clear buying pressure there.
So it's not just chatter, there's actual buying outweighing selling.
Seems so. And Bankless Times also threw in a couple other factors, maybe broader things like the U.S.-China tariff truce easing market jitters a bit, making people more open to riskier plays, like meme coins.
Interesting macro link.
And also just general market sentiment. Both they and Coin Codex noted the fear and greed index creeping up into the 70s, indicating greed. Meme coins sometimes thrive when people are feeling more bullish, maybe a bit less risk-averse.
Right, feeling lucky, perhaps. Willing to take a flyer.
And then there's the technical side. Both Bankless Times and Disrupt Africa mentioned technical breakouts, WIF pushing past resistance levels, completing what's called an inverse head and shoulders pattern.
A chart pattern watchers look for.
Exactly. Seen by some as a signal that a downtrend might be reversing into an uptrend. Disrupt Africa specifically pointing to a $2 target after that breakout.
Okay, so a mix of Solana hype, strong trading metrics, positive sentiment, maybe some macro tailwinds, and technical signals all pushing it up. What about the very near term, like next few days, weeks? Does this momentum look set to continue?
Well, the short-term predictions we saw are generally pretty optimistic, but, with important warnings.
Always caveats with crypto, especially memes.
Definitely. So CoinCodex, their 5-day forecast, it suggested potential high around $1.47, maybe by May 20th. That'd be, over 30% up?
Not bad for 5 days.
And their 1-month prediction was even more ambitious. $3.72 by mid-June, a huge jump, like 228%.
Well, okay, those are some eye-popping numbers.
They are. Now, Bankless Times, they also see the price likely continuing up in the coming weeks. They pointed to $2 the next key level, maybe $3 is a potential peak for this cycle. But they cautioned against expecting it to reclaim its all-time high, which was near $5 anytime soon. So yes, bullish, but maybe tempering expectations a bit.
Right. Tempered optimism seems to be the theme.
I think so. Disrupt Africa echoes that $2 target after the breakout pattern. But they stressed WIF really needs to hold above $1.15 to keep that momentum going.
And if it doesn't?
If it drops below $1.75, they warned the whole bullish trend could break down. It really underlines the volatility you have to expect here.
Volatility is kind of the name of the game with these, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Tintuk Bitcoin added another layer. They said, okay, if the uptrend holds, maybe it reclaims the $1.53 resistance. But they also looked at the RSI.
The relative strength index.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. But it's basically a momentum indicator. It's running really high right now. If that triggers a correction, they suggested the price could dip below $1, maybe find support around 0.08 cents. High RSI often means overbought.
Okay, so short term looks potentially bright, but definitely strapped in for a bumpy ride. What about further out? Medium, long term, rest of 2025 into the years ahead.
Yeah, CoinCodex went further out with their models. For 2025, they're projecting quite a wide range between $1.13 and $5.36.
Big range.
Huge range. Their average prediction for the year is $3.24, which, if it played out, would be a massive ROI, like 373%. They see bullish momentum through the summer, maybe peaking around $5.36 in June. But interestingly, their model also shows potential dips later in the year, like maybe in October.
So up overall for the year potentially, but not necessarily a straight line. What about beyond 2025?
Looking ahead, 2026, their model shows a range between $1.62 and $3.14, average around $2.31. It even pinpointed March as maybe the strongest month.
Still predicting growth then, 2027.
2027 looks a bit more moderate in their forecast, a high around $1.74, a low near $1.95, average maybe $1.23. Suggests perhaps a consolidation period.
Interesting. Does it pick back up after that?
Their models think so. For 2028, they predict a possible uptrend again, average price around $1.66, range between $1.04 and 21 cents. Then 2029 continues bullish, average $3.61, but a really wide potential range.
Yeah.
$2.01 all the way to $7.22.
$7.
That's what the model spits out for the high end in 2029. And then 2030, significant growth still expected. Range $3.60 to $5.33. Potential ROI over 370% again, based on today's price. So yeah, their overall long-term forecast peaks at that $7.22 possibility by 2029, a potential 500% plus gain.
Those are extremely optimistic long-term numbers. And we absolutely have to stress these are algorithmic projections based on past data. The future for any crypto, let alone a meme coin, highly uncertain.
Well, completely. You said it.
Yeah.
These models give a potential scenario. But the meme coin world, it can turn on a dime based on sentiment, trends, things you just can't predict.
Good point. Okay, speaking of market dynamics, let's zoom back in. What are the technical analysis indicators telling us right now?
Okay, so digging into the technicals. CoinCodex's sentiment reading is strongly bullish, like 79%. But then you look at moving averages and it gets interesting.
How so?
The short-term ones, SMAs and EMAs, they're flashing by, suggests immediate upward momentum. But the longer-term ones, the 200-day averages, they're indicating sell.
Ah, that divergence again. Short-term excitement versus maybe longer-term caution.
Often happens in sharp rallies, yeah. The short-term trend takes over. Now, that RSI we mentioned earlier, it's really high. CoinCodex had it 83.90s, Tintuk Bitcoin at 84.21. Investec also noted above 70.
Which usually means overbought. Right, risk of a pullback.
Typically, yes. It suggests the price might have moved up too far, too fast, and could be due for a correction, or at least high volatility. However, Investec added a nuance. They said a rising RSI curve, even if high, can sometimes be positive, signaling strong momentum that might continue. So again, slightly conflicting signals there.
A bit of a mixed technical picture then. Strong buying now, but flashing some warning signs. What about key price levels, support and resistance?
Yeah, those are crucial. CoinCodex puts key support levels at 1/5, then number 07 ends, and numbers in 91 cents, places where buyers might step in if the price drops.
Okay. And resistance, where it might struggle to go higher.
They see resistance at $1.20, $1.26, and $1.34, places where sellers might take profits. Investec offered slightly different levels. They saw support lower, down at $1.32, but stronger resistance up at $1.55. They also mentioned a positive volume balance and strong momentum, which are generally seen as bullish technical signs.
Got it. So technicals show momentum but warn of being overbought, with clear levels to watch. Let's pivot now. Let's talk fundamentals, or maybe the deliberate lack of them.
Chuckles. Yeah, that's really the core of it with meme coins, isn't it? Cointelegraph put it very clearly. Dogwifhat is fundamentally a meme coin. Its value comes from community buzz, speculation, the meme itself.
Not from solving a problem or having some underlying tech use case.
Exactly. Cointelegraph really stressed that Golang embraces being just a meme. No grand ambitions beyond that. It's got a fixed supply, about 998.9 million tokens. No staking rewards, no token burning mechanisms you see elsewhere.
But it is decentralized.
It is. Ownership rests entirely with the token holders. No central team controlling it. But that Reddit discussion we found, it really drove the point home. Someone asked about a white paper.
The project roadmap, the tech explanation.
Right. And the overwhelming response was basically, dude, it's a dog and a hat. What kind of white paper do you expect?
Okay, yeah, that says it all, doesn't it? It is what it is.
Pretty much. It highlights how different this is from a traditional tech project.
So given that it's purely a meme driven by hype, what are the big risks people need to be aware of?
Well, Cointelegraph laid out the classic meme coin risks. First, extreme volatility. Prices can swing wildly very quickly. Second, the risk of pump and dumps or rug pulls, where insiders hype it up and then dump their coins.
Leaving others holding the bag.
Unfortunately, yes. Third, the limited utility. Because it doesn't do anything beyond being a speculative asset, it's super vulnerable to shifts in sentiment or just people getting bored and moving to the next meme.
Makes sense.
And finally, lack of transparency. Often anonymous founders, no clear roadmap. That adds another layer of risk.
And we saw a flash of that volatility even in one of the reports, right? The Binance Square one.
Yeah, exactly. That update from early May showed WIF's price had actually decreased in the previous 24 hours, even while other meme coins were doing different things. Just shows how fast things can change day to day in this space.
Okay, so WIF is hot right now, riding the meme wave, but fundamentally it's hype-driven and carries significant risks. Now, one source, Disrupt Africa, compared it to a newer coin, JetBolt. What was the point there?
Right. Disrupt Africa brought up JetBolt, ticker JBOLT. It's a newer altcoin, apparently had a successful pre-sale, raised over $3 million. The main contrast they were drawing is that JetBolt is specifically trying to offer more than just a meme.
How so? What are they claiming?
They're emphasizing things like zero gas fees because it's built on something called the Scale Network. They talk about having a functional ecosystem, an AI tool for crypto intelligence, and a staking model to reward holders.
Ah, okay. So JetBolt is positioning itself based on utility, technology, a different narrative entirely compared to Dogwifhat's pure meme play.
Exactly. Disrupt Africa presented it as sort of a counterpoint. While Dogwifhat is all about this explosive price action right now, other projects are focused on building out features and trying to establish value in a more, perhaps, traditional crypto way.
Interesting contrast. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here. Let's try and boil down the key takeaways for you listening.
Yeah, okay. So, in a nutshell, Dogwifhat is definitely experiencing some major price momentum right now.
Yeah.
Seems fueled by the broader Solana meme coin craze and generally positive market sentiment. But technical indicators, like that high RSI, are flashing warning signs. Suggests it might be overbought, could lead to high volatility, maybe a correction. And the long-term price predictions, they're out there, some very optimistic, but they vary wildly and are highly speculative.
And fundamentally,
It's a meme coin. No white paper, no real utility beyond the meme itself. Its value is almost entirely tied to community hype and speculation, which, as we know, can change very, very quickly.
Right. So considering all that, the hype, the tech signals, the predictions, the risks, here is the final thought for you, our listener.
Looking at everything we've discussed, what factors do you think will ultimately decide Dogwifhat's fate? Is this current surge sustainable? Can the meme power carry it further, or will the inherent risks of being purely hype-driven lead to a significant pullback? It might also be worth thinking about that broader Solana meme scene and how newer projects, maybe like that JetBolt example focusing on utility, could impact things for coins like Dogwifhat down the line.
Definitely a lot to think about. It's a fascinating space, no doubt. Fast-moving, full of potential, but always carries that significant degree of uncertainty.